the future is tech and the future is Latino, because there's going to be a huge we see it already. There's a huge tech gap. There's a huge STEM gap. There's a huge computer science gap. All these platforms that we see, the Facebooks, the Zooms, that all relies on computer science. That all relies on a coder somewhere doing their thing. And we need to start pushing our communities into those fields as well.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of I Have Something to Say, where subject matter experts are unafraid and unapologetic about sharing their perspectives regarding issues that impact our lives. They speak up because basically they give a shit. So if you're tired of canned answers and want to finally hear real people cut through the BS and talk about real issues, this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Sami Heyman Marrero from Urbander, and behind our mixer is our producer, Chris Majoka from You Do You. Hey everyone, this is so cool. We're ahead with the times. We're lock in step with innovation and technology. I'm so happy because I want to say about 2 months ago, I met Marcos Navas, who's our guest today in this episode of I Have Something to Say. Hi, Marcos. How are you?
Hello, hello, Sammy. ¿Cómo estamos?
We're doing really great. And so, it's like, it's
Mm.
wonderful when friends of a lifetime, right? Your cousin Emma Medina, shout out to Emma, right? You stay in touch with people for over 2 decades, and LinkedIn is a powerful platform. It really is, and so we just recently, launched this campaign called so you only call us in September. That prompted her to reach out, and we, talked. We haven't spoken since 2016, and like face to face, and this time through Zoom. And so it was great to connect with her. And after we finished our like catch up session, she's like, you know what? I need to introduce you to my husband's cousin, Marcos Navas, and here we are, Navas, now we're like good friends. In 8 weeks, it's been fast and furious,
Wow.
because she kind of knew that by putting us together, we were going to get into good trouble real quick, right?
Six
Yeah.
degrees of separation, as they say.
Yes, absolutely. And so then it's been wonderful. So just a mini introduction. Navas is like an ed tech guru. Okay. You started as a teacher and just gravitated towards technology, and you've been in this space in tech ed basically for over 20 years. You're currently like running tech for the Union City, New Jersey school district, right? And that's like
Mhm.
your full-time job. But you dived into entrepreneurship a few years ago because I mean, we've had these conversations, right? I think it just came
Absolutely.
natural to you. And technology is about innovation. And so, ingenuity, innovation, creativity. You're a wonderful presenter too, right? And instructor and teacher. I've seen you in action. And so all of that gelled together, that's what's an entrepreneur, right? And so
Yep.
uh, first off, talk to me a little bit about you. What called you to teaching, and
Mm.
what was the big why, in terms of getting into that career? Because I'm going to tell you something. It's not, it's a lot of ungratefulness, right? Tied to,
Yeah.
teaching,
Yeah.
in the sense where it's not, the people aren't recognized like teachers as they should. You're not, teachers aren't properly compensated for all they do. I mean, I feel like
Absolutely.
that's a whole other episode, right? But why did
Absolutely.
you gravitate towards teaching as your calling?
So, Sami, I mean, I think this all starts, and I think we could all sort of gravitate with this. We are always somewhere along the lines, great people are inspired by a teacher somewhere. Someone who says, "Listen, I believe in you." Someone who says, "Listen, you could do better." Someone who, along the line, just pushes you that little bit more. And not, sometimes when we're adults, we appreciate that a little bit more. But just like everyone else, I had a teacher in high school who was very influential. A history teacher, and being a knucklehead in high school back then, it was the one thing class I like going to, because he brought it down to earth. He related to us in this whole thing. So, when you become a senior in high school and it smacks you, like, what am I gonna do? I said, you know what? If he can do it, why can't I? So, went to the local university here in Jersey, and became a teacher, and became a history teacher at that. So followed his direct
Oh,
footsteps.
oh, I just
So,
learned that about you.
yeah,
Yes.
com-
Okay.
complete opposite of the tech world, really. But
Mhm.
I loved it. I loved the first couple of years of teaching was amazing, relating to the kids, doing the same thing he was, making it fun, making it a class that the kids wanted to go to. But I also always had my eye on tech, and I always knew tech was the language of kids, and it was up and coming. I was back in first couple of years of teaching. I was having kids record and make movies as a semester project, and that just wasn't done in classes. But it was that integration of tech and all that. So what that ended up doing for me was, as the district grew, they then allowed me to walk into a technology coach role, and then that eventually led to a tech facilitator role, which is what I currently do. So I am one of four people that help keep the technology and teach the teachers how to use tech and integrate it into the classroom. So it became a natural fit. And honestly, it was just my own natural curiosity and into the love of tech. It led me to this world of STEM. It led me to this world of 3D printing, and I was doing a lot of heavy 3D printing a couple of years back. And then it led me to the world of coding, and then it just snowballs. Your passion snowballs, and it just takes you to a road you never imagined. I You saw myself as a history teacher. I did not see myself, running a coding company, and working with people like you, and now talking about some pretty innovative ideas at the edge of it all.
Yeah, no, totally. And so when you're talking about introducing recording and all of these different ways of learning into the
Mm,
classroom. We're talking, you were doing this 20 years ago, right? I mean, because
yeah.
that's when you started. And
Mm,
so it was very forward thinking in a way,
mhm.
because yeah, I know I didn't have that growing up, right? And so it's
Oh,
pretty
we
cool.
definitely have to do an education episode, but
Yeah,
back then, even the simple idea, everything was, think about when we were in school, everything was just, hey, teacher gives you info, you regurgitate it on a test, and that's it. That's your grade, and the
yeah,
idea of, hey, give them a group project, give them, let them analyze real documents, and that was like, whoa, what are you doing?
yeah.
So yeah, it's come a long way, but to be quite honest, there's so much room for improvement.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so talk to me about when you got the entrepreneurship bug. Because it's a bug. It's right,
It
and it
is.
bit you, and it bit you hard too. So
It bit me really, really hard, and it caught me at the heart. It caught me at the mind. When the district started moving and progressing, it opened up my eyes as far as you know, uh, my own progression, really, and my family's progression. So I came across, and again, it's funny how things just happen. Hey, a friend of a friend, hey, check this guy out. He's doing something pretty innovative and cool. And I did just that. I called him up. Hey, what are you doing? You want to earn some extra money? Sure. And I got into the world of entrepreneurism with insurance and that business and industry. And then again, education still being at the heart of it, because I was just passionate about the EDU side, the education, the teaching, the influencing, the motivational side. But it did start that bug of entrepreneurship, and it started that
Mhm.
bug of self help and self improvement. It started this whole world of thinking and all these great motivational books, and it was just a spiral of things. And so it led me to start thinking and expanding my own horizons in the education field. So an opportunity arose where there was a little tiny tech company called Raspberry Pi that had this $25 computer. It was all about coding and all this. So they opened up their doors to American educators who wanted to get into the world of computer science and coding. So I
Mm.
applied, and they accepted me. So I flew out to California, to Silicon Valley, to the Museum of Computer Science, and we were part of the first class of Raspberry Pi certified educators here in the U.S. And it was an all-star crew of educators from across the country. So that started something where it became the self-confidence of, whoa, okay, I could do something cool in this space as well. And then while I was at that trip, I met someone who spent some time with TED and TED Ed, and they were like, "You would make an amazing TED Ed innovative educator." And they pretty much recommended me to the TED Ed team. I got an application, filled that out, and I became one of 30 global educators working with the TED and TED Ed teams, and spend some time with them. And again, this is all developing my own skills while this is all occurring professionally.
Right.
And it was again, and while you're there, it leads to something else. And this design, this word design thinking starts popping up, and I'm like, what is this? And it leads me to IDEO and the Teachers Guild out in San Francisco, and spent a year with them and became one of 10 human centered design experts in the country. And while this is all going on, I'm working on myself, working professionally. I'm in the back of my mind thinking, okay, what are you going to do with all this? What can you do with all this? And thinking of Raspberry Pi, thinking a little bit of the TED stuff I've learned and some of the IDO stuff. This is where hands-on coding started to give birth and started to develop. Getting my team together for this crazy project that I have, and it just leads you down that road of entrepreneurship. And that's it. A company was born, and my road started.
That's fantastic. And so we're talking circa when did you start hands-on coding like officially?
So official date was 2019.
Yeah,
It was the
that's
official
fantastic.
year, the official year.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
you felt like you were gaining all of this momentum and things were
Mm,
happening. And one thing that's when you said before, it's been a snowball. It's no joke. That's exactly
yeah,
what it's
yeah,
been, right?
no,
Like one
absolutely.
thing led to another, and everything was just falling into place. And then what happened? The pandemic hits. Talk to
And
me.
just like every
Yeah.
great story always has that point of you fall on your face and what are you gonna do?
Yeah, the
What are you gonna
villain.
do?
The
Are you
villain. The villain was
the
COVID.
villain? Right, right.
Yeah.
Yep, yep, absolutely. So, hands-on coding were physical coding blocks that made coding a little bit more hands-on in a sense where you were getting up and acting out the code. So it was a great tool for face-to-face interaction. And unfortunately, that was not happening in the coding space. The coding space was all about screen time and face and doing things on a computer or on a tablet. So when the pandemic hit and schools closed, my direct client was closed. But I have to tell you again, it's those biggest downfalls that you either make it or break it. You learn your biggest lessons. You wipe yourself off. You get up and put your big boy pants on, and you're like, all right, it is what it is. How are we going to move forward? We have to move this forward. We got to figure this out, and that's exactly what happened. And and it's funny, while the pandemic and while you're down and you're getting punched down and you're getting punched down, ideas still are coming, and wait, hold on, okay, all right, and things are still happening around you, and you're like, okay, hold on, we can figure this out. And the pieces, while you're going through it, even though you don't know, the pieces are falling into place.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that downfall is part of the story. You need to go through that. You needed to go through that to get you to the next level. I always feel those big downfalls lead you to a next level, and it did. It led me to Urbander, obviously,
Yeah.
and it led us to so many great ideas that we are currently, getting out there. But the pandemic was tough, was really, really tough. But we developed a little plan. We made some amazing connections and some amazing partnerships on the hands-on coding side, which led me to this new tech. called the metaverse, and it's just moving. It's just a
Yeah.
snowball. Whether it's downhill or uphill, it's a snowball.
Yeah, and and this time it's downhill, but that's a good thing because that means it's growing,
Yeah,
right? When the snowball is
absolutely.
right, and so I got to tell you, and it was amazing because when we met and you told me this entire story, and when Emma, the cousin, right, introduced us, she's like, you guys need to meet because I feel like something. I can't put my finger on it, but something's gonna happen here with these two crazy people,
So
right?
wow.
Because un loco conoce a otro loco, right? Yeah, like we recognized each other immediately. And so
Yeah.
the thing is,
That,
you were gaining momentum, still working with your job. And I can imagine with the school district, everything going online, you were
mhm,
busy. So it's not like
mhm.
that
Yeah.
aspect was fine, right? You had job security, you were, thriving
Mhm,
in the sense where you were exercising your knowledge, you accumulated knowledge in tech, right? Into really
mhm.
supporting teachers and students and the district and all of that. But from a business standpoint, you felt like you were stuck. However, you mentioned to
Yeah.
me, that it now in hindsight, you realized it afforded you the space and the free time because now you didn't have to commute to work and all of that, right? To be able to immerse yourself in this new thing called the metaverse, right? And we've heard that
Mhm.
Facebook mentioned Meta and all of that. I don't know what's happening with that. But, this is nothing new, really. The metaverse has been around,
Yeah.
for years. It's so funny because when I told my son Pedro, I told you this, my son Pedro, hey, mama's working with like this amazing guy. We're gonna start doing metaverse marketing. He's like, Pedro, he's 15, right? He goes, you're so lame. And I'm like, lame? And he's like, yeah, the metaverse has been around since
Yeah.
2013. I grew up on it. It's Minecraft and it's Roblox and I'm like, yeah, but what about the business applications, right? For the metaverse. And then
Mhm.
all of a sudden he's like,
Mhm.
oh, wait, what? And I'm like, I caught you now, right? Like, yeah. And I said, so that's what we're doing. We're doing grown up stuff now, right? With these spaces, with these 3D, graphic, rich, immersive, interactive spaces, right? And so, tell me,
Yeah.
how was that process of learning throughout those 24 months, right? About the metaverse and how you saw it being because we knew, right, that the education system was broken already before the
Mm.
pandemic, but then the pandemic just pushed it over the edge, right? And so, did you think about the metaverse, right, as a playground, right? Like you see kids playing on it so easily, right? As a playground for
Mhm.
education to maybe be transform itself into these spaces. Like, what was your thought process?
I mean, first and foremost, your son is completely correct. I mean, this is old tech. This has been around for years. Even even thinking back when I was playing with 3D printing, 3D printing has been around for 20 plus 30 years behind that.
Mm,
And it's just tech that takes time to develop, but once it catches some eyes, it blows up all of a sudden. So believe it or not, back in 2016, I actually was presenting on this idea of 3D worlds in education and collaborating in 3D worlds and things like that. And I still remember a lot of teachers raising their hand and saying, "But why? Why would we have to do that if our kids are right in front of us?" And this idea of gamifying the classroom, this idea of again immersing into a 3D your character in a 3D world type of thing. And back then, the word metaverse wasn't even a word yet. It wasn't even, a thing.
mhm,
Uh,
mhm,
but again, people in the ed tech world, we always push tech, and the idea is you never know. Things are moving, times are moving, but you never know. When the pandemic hit, and everyone from one day to the next had to jump on Zoom platforms, and teachers had to get PD on Zoom, and hey, how does this work? How do I control it? Zoom bombing and all this other stuff's popping up. But again, it's you need sometimes events like that to remind us, okay, tech is here to help us. It's a tool, and sometimes we do need to learn to integrate
yeah,
this. And I think a big lesson in education was that this idea that we can't let tech tools and opportunities pass up. the classroom and education anymore. Um, this stuff is moving so quick and fast that our kids are going to be immersed and working in these type of worlds and using these tools, and they use them already. Exposing them to them, today is a need for them. Is They need it for tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's us. We're the ones that have to catch up with with their skill sets,
Absolutely.
right? So the upskilling is on our end, right? Because they're naturals at it. And so yeah, that's right. And so did you find yourself stepping into these spaces when teachers were freaking out during the pandemic and they had to go through this professional development saying, "Can I just take a moment and say I told you so?" I mean,
Oh, I did that. I did that a few times actually. I'd say,
yeah,
"Hey, this is what we told you, about get
right.
ready." These,
Yeah.
you know, people who are anti Google Classroom and anti LMS systems, and no, I don't need that. Well, now you do. What are you gonna do? They've been very fortunate for years where, if you didn't know the tech, you were able to get by. But when something like this happens and you're immersed in it, you have to use it. It shook a lot of people to the core, to the point where, a lot of things happened in education because of this too.
Yeah, totally. Well, I gotta tell you is that we've known each other what, 8 weeks? eight
Hmm.
8 9 weeks at the most, and I've learned so much since I've met
Mm.
you, and I'm so delighted that we're now partners. We're like joint at the hip, right? And we've
Hmm.
never met in
Absolutely.
person actually, right? But la confianza, the
Yeah.
passion, the freaking vision is there. I'm just so excited. And when you like poked the bear and said, well, we could use this, these tools and these platforms for teaching, but also metaverse marketing. I said, wait, what? What did you just say?
Hmm.
You know?
Hmm.
And then we had that first conversation, weeks ago, really. I was like, holy crap, OMG, I'm in, right? Because you're absolutely right. Being able to claim pioneer status in this space. And
Mm.
I think that we bring something to different to the table in the sense we're bilingual too. And with the
Hmm.
growing Hispanic market, right? I mean, everybody could
Hmm.
do, eventually it's going to do metaverse, right? But we have the
Yep.
capability of really delivering experiences
Hmm.
in dual language. Could you imagine? And so
Hmm.
I'm very, very excited about this, but we were very mindful, right? In our approach, we huddled together our teams, right? And we were able to really articulate the value proposition
Mm.
from a business application standpoint. Okay, so the
Yep.
why. Why in the world
Yep.
would companies invest in this, right? Aside from academia, right? So we're looking about private institutions and universities and colleges, and they're already doing it, and
Hmm.
it's amazing to me how just in the past 8 weeks you keep on tagging me on LinkedIn. It's like, check this out, look at Walmart, right? Look at, today was, who did you tag me on to? You did
Coca-Cola.
fashion, Coca-Cola, right? And so all of this
Yep.
stuff. And so I'm just happy to announce that, given our partnership and collaboration, Urbinder is now able to, thanks to onboarding Navas, right, and his expertise, metaverse marketing and doing customized
Mm.
3D immersive spaces, right, where you can
Yep.
interact and really collaborate and
Hmm.
really combat Zoom fatigue, upskill your teams in terms of tech, knowledge, right, and savvy, because that's where we're going. So the sooner you do it, the better.
Yep.
And branding it, and doing 3D experiences. And anyway, I'm just delighted that we're doing this, and I wanted to thank you for being so generous and just sharing all of this, and not only that, for explaining it and breaking it down, because I'm
Mm.
not the tech person. I don't expect to be, but I just need to know enough to understand its value. And thank you, because you helped me understand that.
I mean, thank you. I mean, again, you know, universe, God, whatever you want to call it, whatever you believe in, again, puts people in your pathway sometimes that you don't know why, but they're there. But it happens all of a sudden, and this magic happens sometimes when you meet people. And I think that's exactly what happened when we met. We kicked it off. This idea of me coming in with the tech and the EDU side, and you with the business marketing side. What an amazing fit. What an amazing perfect fit. It really was. It
Yeah.
was it was it was just magical. Every meeting was like boom, 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 and I want to thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for acknowledging, the importance of this and the need for all this, and more importantly, what we can do for our communities using a tool like this. I think has really
Mhm.
been at center of a lot of our conversations. Has been, all right, we have this tool. Sami has the market and that knowledge. How are we going to help and push this out there? And I think that's been the most satisfying thing on my end is, not only is this cool stuff as far as my passion, but now I'm starting to see how it's going to help a lot of people.
Yes, definitely, definitely. And from a business standpoint, just this idea of having live events, right?
Mhm.
In a space that's visually attractive, that's not standing in front of a screen and you're like, oh my God, I'm just over this already, right? And so it's
Mhm.
interactive, it's fun, it's almost like tapping into your inner child, in a way.
Mhm.
But in that process, you learn also, right? About
Sure.
how this new workforce that's entering, because they all grew up, that's it. The new workforce that's entering in the next year, they're
Mm.
like you say, this is their native language. This is this whole metaverse navigation and
Yep.
life, really, they live on it, like 8
Yep.
hours. Like, Lord have mercy, I can't drag my son out of his room because he's like on these platforms all day,
Yep.
every day. Right. And so it comes natural to them. And so if we can
Yep.
create these workspaces that deliver a familiar experience for them, then they'll be engaged. They're
Yeah.
like, okay, so you see me, right? You understand me. And I gotta tell you, with the online learning, I had to put my son into the Florida virtual school, and thank goodness that they gave the options of not having to attend the Zoom meetings, because he completely refused to do it. And I was like, he
Mm.
wouldn't have passed, right? He wouldn't have
Yeah.
passed those 2 years he was home, right? And so it's very important. I can see the value of it. Among them, what I just said, like aligning with a younger future workforce that is comfortable interfacing in
And
these kinds of platforms,
I,
right?
I I do want to say something about that, and I think a lot of us can relate. Growing up, 70s, 80s, 90s, with the movement of Atari and the movement of Nintendo and these games and that gamer world. And I was a gamer when I was a kid, and I always wondered, what would Super Mario look like in the real world and that type of thing. And it really allowed a avenue of creativity. So when the metaverse came around, I guess it's sort of nostalgic in that sense, where it's like, wow, remember those games you used to play? Now look, you can create your own worlds and that whole side of things. So there's a lot to learn, a lot to do in these metaverse worlds. But this world that these kids are in all the time, the Fortnites, the Roblox, the Call of Duties, all this gamer world, first and foremost, has created a whole new market, a whole new industry. It's now a college um, scholarship is esports and gaming now. So the world has
Yeah.
changed and accepted this. But now, it's this not so much look at this as entertainment anymore. These
Yeah.
platforms, these tools and the technology used to create those games could be used for a lot different things now.
Yeah, and the low hanging fruit seems to be training and education, right? Whether it's for
Oh, yeah.
adults, right, and or for
Yep.
children K through 12. So it's
Mhm.
definitely, I saw it clearly, and it
Yeah.
doesn't surprise me that you saw the value in it. And it's not to replace teachers, no. On the contrary, it's just instead of a blackboard and chalk, right? Or those
Yep.
screens. What do they call them now?
It's
The
the
yeah,
smart boards or the
the smart
Promethean
boards. Yes,
board, all
exactly.
those
Instead of
boards.
smart boards, it's just another tool, right? It's just another tool
It
in
is.
your
It's just
toolbox.
another tool, and that's the other thing adults always fearful with tech. I see this all the time. That training new teachers. There's a new laptop in front of them. They're almost scared to touch the keyboard because I'm gonna break it. And that's the biggest difference I think from adults and the kids is they're fearless with tech. They may not know how it works. They may not know the coding and the stuff behind the scenes of the technology, but they sure know they're not going to break it, and they're fearless in the sense of let me see what this does, let me see what that does, let me do, so that's the biggest difference. So you know uh, kids, this is their world, this is their tech, and this is the platforms they're going to be working in, learning in very very soon. If I will say this, if we do have another unfortunate situation where face-to-face contact needs to be limited, even platforms like Zoom are probably no longer going to be used. It's going to be
Mm,
these 3D worlds. It's going to be
yeah.
these immersive 3D worlds.
Yes, absolutely. And so we went through that exercise. We spent like 2 weeks just articulating, the business applications, the possible business
Mhm.
applications. And we came up with a list, people. I'm not even joking. Where is it? Where is it? Right here. Look at all of this. These are my little scribbles because we keep on adding to it. But like check this out. Live events, everything from meetings, expos, conventions, panel
Guest
discussions, you
speakers.
name it, right? Yeah. Workforce training. So if you have ERGs, BRGs, affinity groups, whatever you call them, basically, professional development, that's linked to DEI or not, So scratch your
Hmm.
LMS systems, your learning management systems, right? And let's convert them into metaverse spaces, right? And
Hmm.
give your people something. They'll learn two things: the content you need them to learn, right, for the industry, but then also you'll upskill them in terms of
That's
technology,
right.
right? So there you go. Networking and community building, a resource depository, a learning center, a virtual office. Imagine that. You can replicate, like literally mirror,
Yes.
right? Physical spaces. And then redesign them, redecorate them. The cost is so much more cost efficient, right? It's so much more
Hmm.
cost efficient than remodeling a physical space. So that's pretty cool. Product demonstrations, e-commerce. You can have a store that people can
Yep.
wander around like online. Collaborative spaces, entertainment. Even I think just recently you tagged me on something like a fashion show. What?
Yes. Yep.
It was like incredible. So
I,
entertainment,
I've
new
seen I've even seen live DJs doing their thing in the metaverse,
yeah,
so even to that extent, you can have live performances
yeah.
broadcasted in these spaces and all the avatars can see that. It's really,
Yes,
really
exactly. Weddings. I saw a wedding
yes.
recently,
Yep.
of focus groups and surveys. How cool would that? I mean, for marketing, that's like 101 right there. And gallery setups, like art galleries, museums, all of that. Anyway, and that's just the tip of the iceberg, right? That's
It
what we
really
could
is.
fit on our one pager. So it's just amazing. I am so excited. And what I really appreciate is your disposition along with the rest of our team. And I got to give it a shout out to Little Horse, for saying yes when I said, you know what, let's create a custom show and tell, like a showroom, right? Like a Urbander
Hmm.
headquarters, right? And so and everyone said yes, let's do it. So I can't wait, now in November, knock on wood,
We're
we'll
gonna we're
have
gonna have to
this
do an
space. Yeah.
episode. Well, we're gonna have to do a full episode where we just do a walkthrough through the new Urbander Metaverse offices and show
Yes.
everyone on via podcast what that looks
Yeah.
like, and
Yeah.
and and
Yeah.
uh,
We got to
give them a
figure out a
feeling of
cool
it.
name. Yeah, because I almost want to reject Metaverse because of Facebook, because they're trying to like own Meta and all of that, right? So
Yeah.
I'm thinking, how about Urbander HQ, like headquarters or something like that, right? So because
It could be.
we've
It could
never
be.
listen, yeah,
It
we've
could be
never had a physical
DHQ.
office, huh?
It could be DHQ Digital Headquarters.
Oh, you see? You see? So there you go. We'll come up with something funky. It'll
Absolutely.
be nice. Yes, totally. So I'm just very excited. And I agree with you. Every time we meet, it's like with every which is like twice a week, it's like we further like we see an advancement. We see an advancement, right? And it feels amazing to, be so aligned and understanding, right, the sense of urgency to
Yep.
just get this done, right, and we can calibrate as we go along, but what I'm really excited that we're just doing it and getting it done, and also that we're both coming into this with a sense of wanting to empower underserved, underrepresented, and underestimated communities. When we look at Latinos in STEM specifically, only 8% of professionals in STEM identify as Hispanic, and we need to change that, right? And so, if it's within our power to create a resource and some kind of leadership in this space, so then I'm in, right? So, and I know you're in too. So, the more we can gather people that are determined to make this work, I think the closer we'll get to making sure that as our population grows or our community grows, when you think about the future workforce here in the U.S., the U.S. Department of Labor says that 78% of net new workers in the U.S. in the next 10 years are going to be Latino. Imagine
Mm-hmm.
that. And so we need to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that we create a pipeline of people in our community that are equipped with the skill sets to take those jobs of the future, right? And to be able to
I,
leave it in innovation, right? So, yeah.
I mean, one thing's for sure that we definitely know is coming down the pipeline is the future is tech and the future is Latino, because there's going to be a huge we see it already. There's a huge tech gap. There's a huge STEM gap. There's a huge computer science gap. All these platforms that we see, the Facebooks, the Zooms, that all relies on computer science. That all relies on a coder somewhere doing their thing. And we need to start pushing our communities into those fields as well. Second largest language in the computer science space is Spanish. And
Hmm.
so we need to fill in those gaps in this space because the future is digital.
Yes, absolutely. Well, listen, I'm excited. I know this is the first of many, touch points
Absolutely.
we'll have, right, to inform people and our family and our tribe, what we're up to and all those yummy new things that we're getting into. Yeah, I felt that we had that void that was tech, and
Mm.
you just came like maná del cielo, like I was like the skies parted, and there comes Navas, right? And I'm like, who is this guy, right? And so I'm just so excited that we met, and that we met the way we met, because I love Emma
Mm.
and I admire Emma. And so then to me, it's like it was easy, right? If she makes that introduction, it's like automatically I felt like, that we were going to connect this way, right? And so I'm really excited about it.
It's like long lost friends that came back and reunited, type of
Yes.
feel. It's
Yeah.
wild, very wild.
Yes, totally. So I'm looking forward to celebrating in person with our families. I can't wait to meet your family at some point,
Absolutely.
right? And so that way we can really celebrate this partnership, this collaboration, and all the good that's going to come out of it too, right? Not just for us, but for the community at large. And so thank you, Navas, for trusting, in this craziness that is Urbander, and our approach to marketing and communications and equity and all of that good stuff. And I'm just glad that you're game, that you're like, okay, yeah, that's what I'm all about too. So it was just perfect, a perfect match.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sami. Thank you so much. Thank you to the whole team. I love this opportunity. I just can't wait to see what we what other troubles we get into, because I think we're going to be shaking up a lot of spaces with some of the ideas we're already talking about. So I'm
Yes,
super excited.
absolutely. Well, listen, so I know we have a meeting tomorrow, so I'll see you tomorrow. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, gracias, Navas.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
This concludes this episode of I Have Something to Say. We want to thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to tell your friends about us. We're on Spotify and iTunes as well. There's more to come next week. And remember, if you have something to say, it's time to speak up.